Hello and welcome to our discussion of the Public Land Survey Coordinate System. This is a system that, like latitude and longitude, can be used to locate you on the Earth. In general, it's not used in any other countries other than the United States, and in fact is not used in all 50 states, but it is used in most western and midwestern states. We'll discuss tiers and ranges, sections, and quarters. These represent the breakdown, the scaled breakdown of different increments of measure in one of these systems. This shows you a series of those scales. At the top, we've got the tiers and ranges, we've got sections, and then we've got quarters or quadrants, and I'll talk about each of those separately. The system is based off of a baseline, so like a zero line, just like the equator, and a principal meridian, or something that's equivalent to the prime meridian. But the grid is broken up into boxes. So unlike counting line to line, where we're looking for the intersection of two lines to create a point here, or like in this area, what we want to do is we want to think about it as counting boxes. Okay, so we're going to count. It's a little bit easier in that regard, is that we're just going to count boxes. So tiers are drawn north and south. Okay, those boxes run north and south, or measured north and south. And you can see them here on the left-hand side. Tier 3 south if you're below the baseline, and tier 2 north if you're above it. Ranges run east and west. Here's range R3 east, range 3 east, because it's to the east of the principal meridian, and this is range 2 west, which is to the west of the principal meridian. So if I put an X right here, I would go to the baseline and I would count down boxes. 1, 2. I'm counting tiers, so I'm in tier 2 south. Okay. Now I'm going to count from the principal meridian to my X. 1, 2, 3. I'm in range 3 east. Range 3 east. Right? Easy peasy. If I put a box right here, or an X right here, and I want to count those tiers, well, I'm in tier 1 north for that box. So that's tier 1 north, because I'm above the baseline here. And then I'm going to count to the right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boxes from the principal meridian, and so that puts me into range 6 east. All right, now that's good. That gets me pretty far in terms of putting myself on the grid. What's the scale of this grid? Each box, so this whole thing here, is 6 miles by 6 miles. So it is 36 miles squared. Okay? So what do? We're going to take this box and we're going to come down to this section, and we're going to dice that box into 36 smaller boxes. And the key is to remember, 1, that there's 36 of them, and 2, that they're ordered in a particular way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then it comes down to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then at 12, it comes around to 13, and then down and across to 18. And then to 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and so on until you zigzag all the way down until you get to 36. And this is key because you will then be able to kind of figure out what section or what tier and range you're in based on knowing what section you're in. So, for instance, if I took this grid and I just replicated it right next to it, I would have to find that this box is a 6, this box is a 7, this box is an 18, this is a 19, this is a 30, and this is a 31. So if you see 36 and 31, you know there's actually a boundary right here between the tier and the range on the left and the range on the right. The same issue that we would do or come across if we were to take this entire grid of boxes is 36 and put one, stack it on top of the box up here. 31 would sit there, 32 there, 33 there, 34, 35, and 36. And so that tells me if I'm at 1, and then there's a 36 above my 1, if I see 1, then I know that this is also a boundary between tier and a tier here, and this, which I've drawn bottom right hand corner, is a boundary between a range and a range over here. So this is pretty easy to figure out. If you're sitting right here in this position where I put an X, you're in section 16. So these are called sections. I'm writing that on the bottom here, sections. Okay. If I sit here, I'm in section 26. All right. Now, the section is diced up. It needs to be diced up even smaller. It is 1 square mile, which is pretty big. So I'm going to go ahead and erase some of this stuff. That's going to clear things up for us. Okay. So we're going to take that section and we're going to expand it in the next diagram to make it a little bit bigger and easier to read. And it's shown here on the right hand side. Right here, this is one section, and we're going to break it into quarters and then quarters again. So it's section 11, and you'll notice it has northwest quarter, northeast quarter, southwest quarter, and southeast quarter. So if I was sitting here, I would be in the northwest quarter. If I was sitting in this location in this section, I'd be in the southwest quarter, right? Well, what I'm interested in is actually this little X right here, which sits in the southeast quarter, right? So it's in the southeast quarter, and that's kind of how you write that out. But we can then break these quarters into quarters again, and so I'm going to just focus on one of these quarters. I'm going to take this quarter here, the southeast quarter, which is what is this, and I'm going to break it into a northwest, northeast, southwest, and southeast quarter again. And if I look at this X, I'm in the southwest quarter of this smaller box. Southwest quarter of the smaller box. So I also know, so that's the smallest measurement we're going to do on this diagram, but I'll show you another one in a slide or two. In this case then, we're in section, we come over here, section 11, which is the section that was blown up to show us what we were looking at. So that's section 11. And I'm writing this out in reverse order from small to large, small on the left, large on the right. Okay, and then where's section 11? Well, it's part of this grouping here, and so I'm in this box up here, which is also, I'm going to run out of space. It's going to be tier, I'll just write a T, 1 north, and range, 1, 2, 3, 4, range 4 west, right? So if I write it all out in order so you can see it, it should look like this. I'm going to write it on the bottom of this southwest quarter, southeast quarter of section 11, tier 1 north, range 4 west. So that's the whole measurement written out in the order that it should be written out in. So always going from the larger area, which is 6 miles by 6 miles, and getting smaller to our left. So we get to a quarter, or to the first. I wrote a half there, but it should be quarter, and then another quarter in the southwest quarter. All right, so that's how you read the township and range. But the question then you might have is like, well, what does it look like on a map? A topographic map, and it turns out it's not that hard to figure out. Everything that's written on this map that's related to the tier and range in some way is typically going to be written in red, okay, and numbered in red, and so that is helpful. Now there's also interstates and a bunch of other things that are written in red, so like there's an interstate there, and there's a bunch of roads that they happen to write in red. But what we want to pay attention to are at the edges of the map. This says R11 East and R12 East. So there's actually a boundary right here between range 11 East and range 12 East. Now there should be on the right hand side over here another boundary that's been cut off the map because the map's a little bit short. So I'm just going to draw one in right here, okay, on the right hand side, and we'll make it up. It's not important if it's legitimate or not in this case. And we'll call this tier, because we measure tiers north to south. We'll call it tier 3 north on the bottom, and then tier 4 north on the top, right? And so we have a boundary here and a boundary here between our range and our tiers. Okay? And so then you might say, well, all right, well, we got a tier and a range. That's useful. This is range 11 east, and we'll start writing this out. And then we say range 12 east is on the other side. Actually, let me erase that for right now. And what's the location of Des Plaines Lake given this sort of set of conditions? Well, so it's on the right-hand side of this boundary on the bottom left. So it says R11 east and then R12 east. It's on the right-hand side. So it's in R12 east. Okay? It's south of the boundary, the artificial boundary I drew, which is tier 3 north. So we'd say that that is in tier 3 north. Okay? We look then on the diagram to see where there's an implied 1 mile square, which is right about here. Actually, it might come all the way over like that. That's about right. So that's our 1 mile square. And you can kind of see I'm drawing over some red lines and streets. So it's 1 mile edge to edge here. And in the middle is written a number, and that's a section. So it's going to be in section 29. Now let's dice it up, right? This is the northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest quarter. Okay, so we know it's in the southwest quarter. And then in this case, the lake takes up a big area, so we might say that, you know, if we were to dice this up, it cuts through the lake. So instead of saying that it's in a quarter, we might say it is on the right-hand side or the eastern side. So we'll say it's in the eastern half. Okay? So we read it all out in this way, and we say that, you know, Des Plaines Lake is in the eastern half of the southwest quarter of section 29, range 12 east, tier 3 north. And that's the whole thing written out. Okay? And you can see, as you look around this map, you'll see more and more of these red numbers popping up. Okay? So in your lab book, you've been asked to kind of fill in some of this stuff a little bit and ask some questions about it. So I just wanted to do one or two with you so you can see what it looks like. What you have here is a section that's been divided up into different quarters and halves. And so we want to answer is, like, where is A in this situation? So we don't have to worry about tiers, ranges, or section numbers. We're just cutting up this grid into smaller quarters and halves. Well, so we'll start out with A. We're over here, and we're in the first increment, which is here, which is the northwest quarter, right? So I'm going to write this northwest quarter. Sorry, I just wrote half. Northwest quarter. And now we're going to look at the smaller segments of that section, and it's also in the northwest quarter. And we're going to dice up this little square, and it's in the northwest quarter again, right? Let's take something like G. Let's go down and do G, which is down here, right? So we know that G is we're going to look at the big quarter. Erase this. Let's see. We're going to look at this larger area here first. It's in this box, which is the southeast quarter. Okay? And then within that box, we're going to cut it up into fours again, and it's down here, and it's in the southeast quarter of that particular quarter. So it's in the southeast of the southeast. And then we don't have to break it down anymore because we didn't divide the boxes any further. So in some cases, like let's do D, it's a very easy one. Okay, D is in the what? Yeah, it's in the northwest quarter. Sorry, northeast quarter. Okay. And then within that, it's in the western half of the northeast quarter of some section, of some tier, and of some range. Okay, so that's how you go about filling that in and working through some of those problems. Down on the bottom, you're going to work on making your own grid, and it's going to look something like this thing on the top here. So you're going to kind of dice things up in this way, as you've seen on the top section, and you're going to put them in the bottom. You don't need to get too aggressive with this, so you don't need to draw every single line. So here's how I would start it. I'd start just, you're going to need 2 lines cutting through like that. Okay, that makes sense. And so what I do is I start out like that, and then I'll go to A, and we'll look at how A is done. So we're in a section, and we know our thing has to be in the north. It's in the northwest quarter, so we're going to go to the northwest quarter, and we're going to cut that up into 4s, right? And then it's in the southwest quarter of that, so we're going to cut that up into 4s. So every time you go to the next thing, next level, you're going to cut it into 4s. And it's in the southeast quarter of that. So southeast is here. It's getting really small for us, southeast. Okay, and it's in the northeast quarter, okay, of the southeast quarter. So that means it's actually right there, right? That's where A is. Okay. If we did another one like G, come down and do G. Well, we know it's in the southwest quarter, so we've already quartered things up, and so it's got to be down here somewhere, okay? And then it's got to be in the southern half of that. So all we're going to do is take that southwest quarter, we're going to cut it in half, and we know that G should be right there. All right, so you'll end up with more lines on your diagram, but that's the basis for kind of how you go about dicing things up. All right, so we're going to go ahead and stop there and move on to universal transverse Mercator system in the next